Good morning, Charles.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Is that Wanda?
Nope, it's Janetta.
Oh, Janetta.
No, but Wanda's here.
Oh, Wanda's there.
Yeah, good morning.
Body.
All right.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Okay. Well, happy Wednesday, everybody.
Happy
Same to
Wednesday.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, is everybody doing okay?
Great.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Anybody get the urge to run out to any tattoo parlors lately? Go get your hair done, go to the nail salon, something like that, so you can get up close and personal with somebody. Anyway, okay. So here we are. So today this is the painting and mixed media techniques, painting and mixed media, and we got some interesting things that you guys are sending in, and some of these are looking pretty good. And then I also I pulled a bunch of paintings that I would like to share with you guys that I did as well.
Oh,
and
okay.
I wanted to talk a little bit because we kind of got into it last week. I think it was last week, maybe it was Monday. Somebody showed a piece and they had left a border around their painting, and I was commenting that was a practice that I followed for a long time, particularly for not so much finished paintings, but particularly for like studies, particularly like plein air pieces. What I would do is I would kind of pre-paint the canvas, with a color, gold, black, whatever. And then I'd tape it off, and then I would do my actual work within the boundary of the area that's taped off. And it gave you this nice kind of finished look to it. So I'm going to share a few of those with you and talk about them for a minute. And then real quickly, I want to start going through what you guys have sent in as well. Okay? So if you don't mind, I'm going to mute everybody for right now. If you've got a comment, if you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself. This is kind of a democratic process, so everybody can participate. We want everybody saying what you need to say. Okay, so here we go. And I'm going to start showing you some of the stuff I did in regards to using that border. Okay. So once upon a time, actually, and I did this more before I actually started working for the county, and that's been about 12 years ago. I had a habit of, I would get up every morning, and for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, I would go to the studio, and I would take whatever it is that I was going to eat that day, and I would paint it. And so these are very small. Okay, these are like 6 by 8 inch canvases, if you can imagine that. And so these are very quick, what we call alla prima paintings. And I went in and cleaned this one up, put a border on it, and titled it in Photoshop. That's not really original to the painting, but so this is the whole canvas, including the gold part, is like is like 6 by 8 inches. Okay, and so again, this is a quick little, maybe hour and a half, 2 hour long painting. Right? Now there's a painting that I did from life, and that's probably about a 2 hour painting. And I think it's about an 8 by 10, so it's not very large. There's another example of one of those quick little, you know, early morning paintings. And when I'm saying early morning, I get up at 4 o'clock. So this is like 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And you know, I generally tend to get up real early anyway, but one of the reasons I like getting up early and doing still life work is that it's completely dark outside. So that means that in my studio, if I have a single light source, I can control the light and I can get, you know, really good, you know, one directional shadows and light. And so it makes the whole thing more dramatic, you know, when you do that. So yes.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
On the first painting, you have a glass there. Can you give us any tips on how to paint glass? I'm not real good at, I don't know how to really do it that well.
Yeah, well, glass is one of those things. Mainly, you know, you're not really painting the glass itself. What you're painting is you're painting the highlights, you know, and any kind of reflections or refractions in the glass. In this particular case, it's got liquid in it, so it refracts light through the liquid. But in essence, what you're really doing is you're painting what's behind the glass. Because for the most part, the glass is going to be, you know, transparent. I don't think I really have an example here that I can show you, but I'll try to find one, okay? Because that's a really good question. And if you've ever noticed, have you ever tried to paint a vase of flowers and you got water in the bottom of it and the stems are sticking into the water?
No.
Okay. Yeah. And a lot of times, you know, when people try to paint that, you know, they take that stem and they run it right down into the water. And the fact is, if you really look at what goes on there, that doesn't happen. It's actually kind of a odd visual thing where it refracts the light, and so things don't line up. They sort of set off to one side or the other. So if you have a vase and you have some flowers to stick in it, try that and see whether they line up, you know, while you're looking at it. But yeah, that's kind of an interesting study. There's another one of those examples again where I just taped off the edge. And again, these are very small. You know, again, about maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, you know, at the most. Okay. So you kind of get the idea, right?
Nice.
These are very nice, very nice.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you know, you can also do that with your landscapes. I think John is here, and he does watercolor. Well, these are some of the watercolors that I did. A group of my friends and we went up to a place called Friendship, Maine, and we stayed for about a week up there. And rather than taking oil paint and everything else, you know, this is, well, it was before 9/11, but I didn't want to schlep a lot of oil paint and stuff with me. So I just took a box of watercolor. And actually, I think I've talked about this particular watercolor board. This is a Strathmore, what we call double weight watercolor board. And it's a plate finish. And so it's kind of smooth. And so the thing I like about working on this is, unlike watercolor paper, you don't have to stretch it. You know, you can cut it down to the size you want. You can tape off the edges, you know, so you get a nice clean edge, and then just work on this stuff, and then, you know, peel up the tape, and you've got a nice finished piece of work, and you've got enough area around it to mat it, put it in a frame, you know. But so this is a watercolor, and this, again, it was done from life. It was done out on that location. And I work in watercolors in really kind of a lot of different ways. You know, a lot of times in watercolor, I'll treat it kind of a la prima, where I'll just lay in some indication of the shapes, you know, in like a very light color, like a light yellow or something like that, and then paint, you know, all my color blocks in from there. In this particular case, because there was so much architecture, you know, in the piece, I actually kind of penciled out my shapes. So it left a line that you can pretty clearly see, you know, that made those objects look a little more architectural, a little harder edged than you would get just with straight watercolor. This one, yeah, now this is an example where I didn't do that. I didn't use a pencil. See, I just took the watercolor, I laid in kind of a light sketch in like a light yellow, and then I went back in and I laid in all my color. And it's got a much softer feel to it. Yeah, this is another one. Again, you know, didn't use a pencil, you know, just laid in my shapes. Initially, you know, probably with a very light color. And it could have been a yellow, could have been a blue, could have, you know, you can use anything. You know, you just want to really thin the color down. So again, it's easy to paint back over. There's Pembroke Point Lighthouse. There's a little bit of pencil in there that I can see, you know, around the lighthouse itself. And there was one with, again, you know, using a pencil just to sort of sketch it out. And so there's another little still life, you know, that I did. So
Those are all very nice. I like every one of those.
yeah. So there's some rocks and water. And one of the things I like to do, particularly with still lives, and this gets a little esoteric, but you know, I tend to do still lives, and they're not really about the objects that I'm painting. What they're really about is they're about personal relationships. You know, relationships I have with other people in my life, right? And so, like this painting, a friend of mine had traveled to Asia, and she came back, and she brought these little, you know, like teapots with her, and had given them to me as a gift. And you know, for me, it's kind of the representation of our relationship with each other, she and I. Her in the foreground, me in the background, and then and then the lemon. And you know, you might say, okay, so was it a sour relationship? No, not at the time it wasn't. But you know, it was. You know, the reason I picked the lemon was you have lemon with tea, but also because of the element of the color. You know, the brightness of it, and so in many ways, you know, there can be hidden messages, you know, in people's artwork, and it may not necessarily be what you think it's really about. Yeah. This little still life is called "Thankful for My Fortune," and again, you know, you got a fortune cookie, you got one of those little fortunes inside. You know, obviously one has been broken open and taken the fortune out. So.
Is that your signature on the right top?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, it's interesting. I have to make me one.
Yeah. When I was going out to the Academy of Art in San Francisco, that's where I went to school at. You know, I went to school with a lot of Asian students, and a lot of times, you know, when they sign their pieces, particularly, you know, from China, Japan, you know, they have these very graphic looking, you know, signatures. And so I worked on that for a good number of years till I kind of figured out how I wanted to put together a simple graphic. And it's just nothing more than a C and an S,
Mhm.
in a chop or a block. And, and I've used that for a good number of years now.
Hmm.
It'll be easy to recognize your work with that. It's a nice signature.
Not everybody takes the time to sign their work that way.
The Gravatar.
Pardon?
It's a Gravatar. You know,
It's a-
like an avatar, a signature, it's a symbol that people use, like all of the large companies have them. You can recognize their company by their little symbol.
Like a logo, yeah. Yeah, you could call it a logo. You could call it a chop. You could call it, whatever you
It
want.
looks like a cartouche, Egyptian cartouche.
Yeah, that would be another name for it. Again, you got a boat. And I wanted to show you this. The reason I put that in there, we were talking about clouds last week, and how you create this sense of depth and distance, with the sky itself. A lot of times, when people are painting clouds, they make everything kind of the same size and it's kind of flat, and it really makes the sky area look flat. And that's problematic, when you're painting landscapes, because obviously, some of those clouds are going to be closer to you. There are going to be ones that are further away. And so you've got to be fairly conscientious about how you design those shapes and how you paint them, so that, you can get this sense of depth in the painting. And, this looks closer to you, right? The trees down here look closer to you. And then the city, which is kind of where your eye goes, looks further away. It's right there on the horizon line. And you get this forced sort of perspective. So that's one of the things you have to kind of consider, when you're doing landscapes. Here's kind of another example. Now, this doesn't show much of the sky, whatsoever. But again, we talk about, when you're painting, it's not that you're just trying to copy what you're seeing. It's also that you're also trying to design, how things are going to sit on that canvas so that it's interesting and compelling for someone to look at. And, if I made the water and the rocks and everything was, just one row after another, and these were all straight lines, this would be a very uninteresting painting. But it's those angles and how your eye gets led, from the lower right, going across to the left, and then back up the river, and then back up, the grass, and then the trees. So it's how you move through the painting. And a lot of times that make painting sort of exciting and kind of interesting to look at. So thinking about composition is an important thing. And
Is that watercolor, Charles?
no, this is actually an oil painting, and this was done what we call plein air. So I was actually standing out there at the river when I painted this. There's what appears to be a relatively simple little painting, right? And just recently, I had some of you draw eggs and things like that. And you begin to look at, the light and the shadow and how you create this illusion that there's, right? Because very easily this could look flat, but, if you pay attention to the change in value and the change in color, you know, you get this sense that it is, you know, it's got some form to it, it's got some depth. Not always an easy thing to do, you know. But again, you know, you got to take your time, you know, just really make some good observations about what you're seeing and figure out that, you know, value structure. Okay. All right. Anybody got any questions about any of those?
What's the light source?
Pardon?
What direction is the light source on the sun?
Well, the light would have been from sort of behind it and to the left. You know, because all your cast shadows are being cast slightly forward, you know, to the right. So that means the brightest light is hitting, you know, over on this side. And of course, the inside of the eggshells are lit up. And then these are falling more or less into shadows.
Charles?
Yeah.
It's Diane.
Hey, Diane.
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Just teasing you. You've got 2 open eggs, but only 1 yolk.
Yeah. That is true.
The other one fall on the floor?
Probably. Either that or else I was really hungry and I wanted to eat it then.
Okay.
For a picture like this, do you, for a painting like this, do you take a photo first of it so you can maintain some type of stability in the picture?
No, in this particular case, this again, I think this was about probably about an 8x10 inch painting, and it was one of those paintings that I got up at about 4 o'clock in the morning to paint.
One thing, can you send me a picture of that so I can work on my light and darkness?
Is this?
Oh, this is Bernice, by the way.
Oh, Bernice. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, I hear a voice, but I don't know who it is.
This is Eloise. So the yolk maintained its position while you were painting it?
Yeah, it was there.
Didn't move?
No.
Oh.
It kind of stayed like right there. So
Wow.
that's as far as it went. Yeah, once I cracked it, you know, I just kind of laid it down there, and this was actually on I think it was like a piece of like masonite that I had painted white, and so it was just laying there, and it didn't move around a lot. So now, if I would have broken the yolk, yeah, it probably would have dripped off the edge of it eventually. Kind of lucky on that one, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, this is the last one I'll show you. And again, you know, this is a little still life. Now, this one ended up taking quite a bit longer than just my usual 1.5 to 2 hours. And I set this still life up, and I think I painted on it for, it was probably close to a week, you know, off and on. But, you know, it's a little ginger jar, you know, and a piece of copper, like a little bowl. And then there are crab apples and persimmons. Now, these are the American, you know, the wild native persimmons. These are not the Asian ones. These are the ones who, you know, when you pick them off the tree, they'll turn your mouth inside out if they're not really ripe. Anyhow.
I like that.
That's everything I got to show you, I guess.
Those are very nice.
Okay. I wanted to start kind of sharing some of the things that you guys sent in. We've got some nice stuff going on here. All right. Oh, okay. Do the second part. Hit the actual share button. Yay. Okay.
Oh, nice.
All right. Now, I have to ask, because I don't know. Who sent me these?
Bernice.
Oh, Bernice sent these. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't get, you know, that it was you. But yeah, these are really nice.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, so
The bottom is the original.
right,
The bottom is the original. The top is my version.
right, yeah. So this is something you were looking at, and this is what you did from the.
Right.
Okay, yeah, all right. Well, I have to honestly tell you, you know, I kind of like your version in many ways better. You know,
Really? Hey.
it's softer. You know,
I do too.
it's softer.
Yeah, yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I mean the other is you know, kind of graphic, but yours has a little more form and movement to it. I think you did a nice job on that.
Hey, me.
I like that.
Hey, you.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Okay, and then I'm guessing that this is yours as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously, well, or it may not be so obvious. This is a copy of Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. And so this is Bernice's version of it. Okay. How large is this, Bernice?
I think it's 12 by 16 or maybe 14 by 16.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not huge. It's kind of
Kind of a medium size. Okay. Yeah.
This photo doesn't do it justice. You should see it
Yeah.
in person. It's beautiful.
Well, we could talk about that. We could talk about when you guys take pictures. Yeah. You need to take more time with taking photos of your work and try to, if you're taking it with your phone, you know, try to square it up in the frame. So again, you know, you don't get these kind of odd perspectives. But the other thing you have to think about is the light that you're shooting it in. Now I see if you can follow me on this one. One of the things that work against you when you're trying to photograph your artwork is a lot of times people will put a light directly on the work. And if you have an oil painting or if you have a mixed media piece that has a lot of texture to the surface and things like that, a lot of times, you know, if you have real bright light on it that's real direct, what you get is you get a lot of these like little hot spots where the light, you know, is hitting those the surface of it. And when you're shooting artwork, you know, when I shoot my paintings and things, you know, I'll wait until it's sort of like either like really early morning or really late afternoon. There's a place on my back porch, on my deck, that, you know, basically is in the shade. Now, it's not a real deep shadow, but it's just kind of a general kind of diffuse shadow back there. And so when I hang it on the wall and I photograph it, I don't have to contend with like really bright light causing all those, you know, little highlights on the surface. So my recommendation is, you know, find a place in your house or, you know, just outside, you know, either on your patio or something like that, and find a time of day when you have nice diffused light out there and try to photograph your artwork, you know, in that kind of lighting. It will help actually capture more accurate color and contrast to the work that you're shooting.
Actually, Charles, what happened with this picture? I think it was my second or third painting, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna put some glitter in it. So what you're seeing is just a little bit of glitter that I put in the sky.
Okay. All right. So is this an acrylic painting or is this oil painting?
Yes, it's acrylic. I haven't done any oils at all.
Okay. Yeah. It almost has the feel of almost like an oil painting, you know?
Oh, okay.
So you did really well with that. Okay.
And when you see it in person, the stars are sparkling. It's just a beautiful picture.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe at some point, we can try to get you to, photograph that again, in like better light and try to square it up so that, we can see it a little more clearly. Okay. Anyway, let's see. Moving on down the line here. There's a few things I want to kind of show real quick. Diane is joining us. Diane, I think this is your first day with us, right?
Yes, it is.
Yay! She finally. Okay. So tell us a little bit about the painting that you got here on your stovetop.
Charles, it has no history whatsoever. You wanted us to do the girl with the pearl earring.
Mhm.
And I started out trying to modernize that, and my paintbrush just had a mind of its own, and this was the end result.
Well, I'm glad that you followed, your inclination to let your mind, go its own direction. Yeah, because the idea was I didn't want you really copying the painting. I wanted you to take it as a source of inspiration and then, go from there. So you did that. And
Yes.
yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a nice painting.
Thanks.
So is this acrylic?
It is.
Okay. And what did you paint it on? It looks like one of the canvas pads or something like that.
That's exactly right. It's a canvas pad.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, you did a nice job
Colors.
with it. You could push the values a little bit more in turning the face, but again, it's a nice little painting.
Well, I did it in a hurry because,
Yeah, you didn't have a lot of time.
right. But I enjoyed it. I had not been painting to speak
But you can
of.
almost see her mood in this. You can see, kind of feel what she's thinking and everything.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. It's not just a painting, it's a mood,
It's got a nice kind of emotional quality to it. So
Mhm.
Has a nice what?
emotional quality.
Oh,
Yeah,
emotional.
yes. Mhm.
Wistful.
A bit, yeah. Yeah, she's kind of contemplative, kind of, but yeah, again, nice light, nice, you're getting there on the shadows. She looks more contemporary. So yeah, fun little piece.
And the earrings, I actually used gold paint, but it didn't show up quite like I thought it would.
Right.
I thought there might be a little more shine to it, I suppose.
Right. And that's one of the problems with trying to photograph anything that's metallic. It never looks metallic.
But even the finished on canvas they don't shine.
Yeah, they really, well, you can get metallic paint that really looks very metallic. The problem is in trying to photograph it, it doesn't ever come out in the photograph that way because.
Well, this is metallic paint.
Mhm. Yeah. And
I mean, it'll shine in the light, but if you hold it at an angle, but
right.
Anyway, that was my attempt.
Okay. All right.
Thanks,
So,
Charles.
yeah, and this afternoon, because we're down to 5 minutes, we'll end up talking about the rest of these because a lot of people sent pieces in that I want to talk about.
There's another dial-in this afternoon?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. Today is at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Yeah. And I sent you the link. It's the link right underneath this.
Oh, okay. All right.
I sent you all
Thank you.
for this week. Okay.
Thank you.
So you could get there. This is Eloise did this drawing, and this is from the Degas piece. And so you got a nice feel to this one as well. And it's coming along. The one thing I'd say, and maybe it's just again, because of the way it's photographed, is that the values don't seem to be real strong in this, and you can push some of your darks But again, you know, it may be just the way that it's photographed, and it's kind of washed out. Okay. And then we talked about your paper bags, you know, but I wanted to talk about those again. You know, again, you know, when you're looking at your shapes and your forms, you know, you've got a good range of value on this. And the only thing that I had to say that was really critical about it was where those cast shadows are falling. And, you know, and trying to get them to match up with the bags themselves so that they really feel like they're coming from the bag. Okay.
Plan to do that again.
Pardon?
I plan to do that again so that I can get the light source right.
Okay. Yeah, I would really like to see what you do with that. And that's, you know, it's a great exercise. And it's a good subject to work with, you know, because you can set it up and leave it up for, you know, a good period of time and go back and really look at it and study, you know, what's happening with the light and the shadow. You know, the only problem that you're really going to have in doing something like that is you need to set it up somewhere and have a direct light source to try to keep it down to, if you can really keep it down to one light source, that would be ideal. But that's hard to do, you know, inside of a house, because you got, you know, windows and everything else, and, you know, so light can be coming from several different directions. You know, that's why I was doing those still lifes, you know, at like 4 in the morning before the sun came up, because I could really control the light source to make it, you know, one direction. So I only had to deal with that one light source, and I didn't have to worry about, you know, light sources from multiple places, you know, coming in.
You put it in a large cardboard box with a light source coming from one direction. It's easier to see.
Yeah, you can. Or you can take a large box and put on a table. And, well, and again, you know, it depends on when you're working. You know, if you got the large box there, and the light's coming in just from the front, you know, that's fine. But
It was inside of a box.
it was? Okay. So, you know, different artists, you know, handle that different, you know, in many different ways. You know, there are some people who will actually construct like a wooden box to paint their still lifes in, and then they'll have a opening in the side of the box with that single source coming from that direction, and then they'll put everything in there and paint it, and that helps them again, you know, control, you know, how much light and what the actual contrast is with the piece. So, well, we're down to less than a minute, but like I said, we'll be back in about an hour, and so, you know, go get you some lunch, and we'll come back here and go from there. Okay.
Come back at 1 o'clock, correct?
Yeah, 1 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Charles.
See you then.
Good.
Charles, Diane, I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
I see some of us, our pictures don't appear, our faces. How do you do that?
Right. Well, that depends on whether or not, if you look down to your lower left, there should be a video camera.
Yeah.
A graphic, just click on that.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
That should turn on your camera so that we can see your face.
I'll spare everyone. Well, at least I know how.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or they'll post just a picture of them because they don't want to do their hair, put on makeup, whatever it is. They don't want to frighten you. You know, me, you know, you're going to get me the way I am. So here I am.
Yep. I am what I am.
Yep.